Tetris. 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 Pac-Man. No! Tetris. What is it? What's it all about? I wondered that myself. What could be so special about a game of stacking blocks that hundreds, no, tens of people would talk about it on a daily basis? I didn't know a lot about Tetris. I know. That may come as a shock to you all, but I did meet a lot of people that do love the silly game. When my friends first told me that they liked Tetris, well, frankly, I wanted to beat my head in with a 9-iron from the pure stupidity of the statement, as I'm sure the rest of you would want to do the same. How interesting could a game about blocks be? But what I learned? Tetris is more than just a silly game. It's a way of life to these people. These people. Let's travel back to 1985 real quick. Your name is Howard Tetris, a long passed over scientist whose self-help website wasn't taking off because it's the 1980s and no one knows what a website is. You're hopelessly lost. And your wife, she's starting to think, maybe I should have gone and seen your more attractive cousin Jacob. That's when you see it. You lay your eyes upon what would be the catalyst for your future. Stonehenge. The blocks! Ooh! It inspires you to take your self-help website and start recoding it. Suddenly, everything starts falling into place. Because it's Tetris, that was a Tetris joke. You have created the game of a century. The actual creation of Tetris was a lot more complicated, and that's just what I got off of Wiki, basically. Though Howard created a fun game, well, he liked to say the game created him. I don't think that makes any sense. The game wasn't getting a hold of the young crowd that he had hoped. He had hoped that Tetris would latch on to the young community, and it would become the game of a generation. That's when Howard's wife came up with an idea. What if we told people about the game? Howard stopped. He looked around. The room had started spinning as he saw his future building in front of him. Building. Just like a game of Tetris. It was at that moment Howard knew what he needed to do. And that was to sell. I'm not going to say sell for every single time he sold. People were lining up for miles to get a taste of that sweet, sweet Tetris action. I regret saying that. The lines that the PS5's release created pale in comparison to Tetris's launch date, which sold 20 units. Now you're probably wondering, what was so great about Tetris? Well, unlike any game of the generation, it included a lot of things that weren't around at the time, such as multiple ways to play, different music to choose from, and an interactive story that would make Telltale Studios want to close their doors just so they didn't have to compete. And later they did. So we know about how Tetris was made, and how it got its start. But we haven't really talked about what Tetris is. So let's get into the lore of Tetris, shall we? Tetris 1, the first in this series, also known as Tetris, released in 1988 for the Nintendo Game Boy, and takes Nintendo Game Boy, and it takes place in Seattle, Washington, as seen with the Space Needle in the background of the title screen. Another hint of the setting being Seattle can be seen in the title screen behind the Space Needle, where you can see Seattle Seahawks Defensive Rookie of the Year, Tariq Woolen! In the background, locking down his area of the field like he do. As it says on the back of the box, your goal in Tetris is to make a Tetris. Now, to first-time players, it may be confusing to hear this because, what the heck's a ding-dang Tetris? What is it? I sought out to find what a Tetris was during my research for this video. I put in hours, blood, sweat, tears, not blood, I didn't bleed, to figure out what a Tetris was. And with some help and training from my good friends, I have mastered the art of the Tetris. You see that? That's a Tetris. The goal of the game is to stack blocks as quickly as you possibly can, all the way to the top. The in-game explanation of this can be found on the back of the box as well, where it states, stack your blocks to move your mocks. They would later go on to have a legal battle with the creators of Mousetrap for copyright infringement. So that's great and all. We know what a Tetris is, but, why? Well, Tetris is actually Latin for provider of the tic-tac, or at least that's what Google Translate says, and I can't be bothered to look any further. We were trying to build a bridge made out of tic-tacs. Woo! Yeah, alright, that's awesome. Now, this canon explanation varies from title to title, and from person to person. Everybody has their own belief, but what stays consistent across all of the spin-off games such as Tetris Attack or Pokemon Puzzle League, aka Pokemon Tetris Attack, is that 1, games always take place in Seattle, and they all feature Tariq Woolen in some way. Now that's great and all, and we get how the game works, but what about the history? The title of the video is called the History of Tetris. Well, the history of Tetris is very well documented, and even got a movie in 2023 called Tetris. It's on Apple TV, and you can watch it. I didn't. I don't wanna go on Apple TV. It scares me. It scares me. Jason Momoa is on it. In the years to follow, Howard would go on to do many philanthropic things, even getting Tetris into space at one point. Howard was even allowed to go on the shuttle as the guest of honor. Howard, unfortunately, consumed one of the freeze-dried ice cream samples that noted astronaut I'ma Kill You was saving. The last tragic moments of his life were caught on film.
Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hey Howard, let's play Tetris. You win! No one survived the expedition, but what did survive was the game. Tetris, to this day, is one of the most played games, filling up arenas of hundreds, no, tens of people to see the best of the best compete. At first, I was skeptical. A game about blocks. That won't make millions and millions. But I finally see why Tetris is such a popular game. It's not because of the corrupt, pedophilic elite that run the government from the shadows, slowly deteriorating our minds to aimlessly place blocks to fuel their crypto-based micro schemes to decimate all of New Hampshire like I had previously speculated. No! It's a game about placing blocks. It's a game anyone can pick up and play, unless you have no arms. It's a community that looks at the world and says, I got nothing going on. Let's stack some blocks. And that's something you just gotta commend. Also, check out my friend. They helped me. They like Tetris. And they're almost monetized. They need some more watch hours. So if you could go check out their videos. There's one about Tetris. That's pretty funny.